So, however it is that you've got here on FM or streaming or social, you got it on KNAC. I'm Stu, and man, I'm really stoked and excited to officially bring on my guest, John Bush. Actually, it's not our first time, is it? What's up, man?
It's not. We have a long history of connecting here and talking
I
in
appreciate you.
various forms. So
Yeah, for
glad to
sure.
be with
I
you
mean, the
this
last
week.
time it was like official, I think we were doing Horns Up, and that was 2016 on KLOS.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah. I wish Horns Up was still going.
Yeah, well, don't we all, man? So Emotion Factory Reset is the new record. It's going to be out on May 22nd. It's your ninth studio album. Close to the Bone. The single and the video are out now, and dude, they are so great.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's sounding killer. We actually saw a cut of the video that we're doing next. I can't talk about it yet because it's still not quite
Okay.
there, but this one's going to really be entertaining for people. Shows a little bit of John doing some acting, which is pretty funny.
Ah,
Some stunts, but yeah, it's great. But yeah, the record in itself is awesome, and it's cool to go out there and still keep making new music that, we kind of feel like we keep pushing the boundaries with every new record. And I mean, we obviously realize that we're a legacy band and no, we're always going to be associated with those guys who wore armor in the 80s and Can You Deliver, March of the Same, which, I love, and
yeah.
then Full Salvation in 91 and Last Train Home and Rain of Fire. But, if you're a band that's still around making music, basically 40 years later, and you're making new music and new albums, you want people to actually care about it, and people do about Armored Saint.
I absolutely do. You guys have this knack for just writing these incredible riffs. And I mean, lately, like some of my favorites are from the more recent records Win Hands Down, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, dude, End of the Attention Span. And the new one, Close to Bone, kind of fits in with that just
Yeah.
very aggressive, tight, I don't want to say complicated, but it's like a you lay down like the song isn't just you don't obviously know immediately where it's going yet. And there's like where's this riff leading, and then it goes somewhere that just locks in and really takes you on a great breathless kind of journey.
Yeah, well, it starts off with the groove, and Gonzo and Joey are always just pretty much locked in. They're kind of a rhythm section that's a little different than the average heavy metal rhythm section because, they'd rather be in a funk band, quite frankly, if they could be. And so they bring that to the table, which, is a little different than the average metal band.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because on like Punch in the Sky, When Hands Down, we had some kind of long songs, and it was a concerted effort to say, let's kind of shorten some songs on this album if we can,
Uh-huh.
but still kind of have these interesting arrangements. So like Close to the Bone, for example, has two bridge parts.
Right.
The song is, I think, around five, maybe a little under 5 minutes, and we have a couple verses, chorus, leads, and to have like two bridge sections in this short song, not short, relatively short for Armored Saint, but
It's like 3 or 4 minutes, right?
it's
About
about
four.
4 to 5 minutes,
Yeah,
a
four to
little
five
under
minutes.
five, I think,
Yeah.
right around five, and is like pretty miraculous considering the fact that it's not that long of a song. So,
It
uh,
moves though. It just moves, right?
right. So I think that's, it's being creative with arrangements, and riffs, and trying to just maximize everything in a song, but also giving a lot to the listener. There's a lot to kind of be
There's
able to
also
give.
that lyric, and I got to tell you, I really relate to the lyric in Close to the Bone, and maybe I'm not reading the right thing into it, but like many times I'll come home and my buddy Thrasher, he's my housemate from KNAC, our old morning guy, and he would go, "Hey
Right.
man, how was the day?" And I would just go, "Dude, it was an exercise in restraint." That's how every day can be sometimes. And like there are lines in close to the bone that like just sound exactly like, another way to say what I think.
Well, that's pretty funny, and that's very accurate, and you're very observant. I mean, I think kind of the premise of that song is how do you function every day? I know I'm not trying to get woe is me to me
Sure.
or anyone, but the reality is just every day is kind of a grind sometimes for people. And how do you grind that out with other people? Maybe
Mhm.
people that you don't always, see eye to eye with, How do you do that and still kind of have stay positive and have a good attitude or have a sarcastic attitude? Because sometimes that's what works. Um,
That's what
and
saves you.
and and just keep on going and just give a lot back to society and yourself. So how do you do that? And that's what kind of was the premise of this. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the vibe about that song, and it is, it's gut wrenching. Of course, everything's a little more exaggerated when it comes to writing heavy metal lyrics. So
Yeah, it's so
maybe
theatrical and
not.
over the top. And no, it is, and that's why it's exciting. That's what gets the blood going.
Yeah.
Turning the mundane and the everyday into like an event, a special thing. Even if that thing is just like a song for 4 or 5 minutes, like it just it makes me want to drive my car into a brick wall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and don't do that. Please
Don't
don't
do
do
that, but
that.
the feeling. It's
For
hard to
sure.
describe sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, this is what carries us on. I just got off the phone with a manager he's not my manager, but he's manages a bunch of bands. And and he worked with Category 7 on the record that we'd made and that band. And we were just talking about some various things. And he was just telling me, what you do is you make music and you write songs. And because, I was telling him some of the frustrations that we are kind of dealing with because here we are this band with a new record and we're really enthusiastic and but we're still trying to like figure out some touring opportunities and it's some tough sledding out there. It really is. So it's like you're
Cool.
trying to figure out what to do and what's the right thing to do and you know do people care about new music? We're just having a candid conversation. He's like, man,
Yeah.
this drives you. And he was telling me that John Anderson from Yes, who's
Yeah.
81,
Wow.
is putting out a new record. He goes, he sounds incredible. He sounds angelic, this guy, and he's doing like, 20 dates in the States and 15 dates outside the States. And he's like, and this guy he's can't wait to go out on the road and he's 81. And I'm like, well, I mean, then yeah, that's
What more can you
awesome.
need to say,
Right.
right?
Incredible.
Yeah, and
Incredible.
I know he is there's an LA date too. I just heard a commercial for it. Speaking of live dates and stuff, the first one that you guys have, at least that I'm aware of, on your docket is coming up in just another week and a half or 2 weeks at the Rainbow on the 19th of April. It's the Rainbow Bar and Grill Backyard Bash, and it's a hell of a it's a trippy lineup. I mean,
I know.
it's you guys, LA Guns, Panagram, who I've never seen. I don't really know that much about. Alien Ant Farm
Yeah.
and Boy Hits Car.
Yeah.
So it's something for everybody for sure. And you guys are like smack dab in the middle. And there's like it's a lot of commenting on social. Like, wait, who's opening for who?
Yeah. I know. Well, we're stoked to be part of it. We've become friends, especially me and my wife, with Mike Magliari and his wife Amy, who who owns the whiskey and owns the
Yeah,
Rainbow, and his family has for years, and they're great people, and we're excited to play it. And we've never done this. Odin actually, Jeff Duncan's played it because
yeah.
Odin did it like on the last one, and this is going to be a cool one because Jeff's playing with us, and then his brother Sean is in LA Guns, so both
Right.
Duncan brothers are going to be able to play on the same stage, which is really cool.
That's
Uh,
an awesome show, dude. I got to tell you, man. I mean, it's so earlier on in the days, Boy Hits Car, Alien Ant Farm. Then I think it's you guys,
yeah.
then Pentagram, and then LA Guns. I have never ever seen. Well, I've certainly never seen even a mediocre show from you guys, and I've never seen anything but a killing show from LA Guns. I've never seen them be even half-assed. They're so great every time.
Yeah, it's cool, and they're the headliners, so it'll be great. And the Rainbow is I could well I won't walk because that up going up that hill on San Vicente I would never be able to breathe a word of lyric because it's so hard. But it's right there, literally 5 minutes from my house, and it's the Rainbow, man. Come on, and
You
it's
guys
free.
must have.
It's free,
You guys,
so.
it's free, right? I think you got to buy two drinks to when you get to the door, but
Well,
there's no actual, cover. And
unless you're sober, you do not. I mean,
this is true.
if you
Well,
walk in the Rainbow, you would be drinking.
most people do, or
Yes.
whatever. Feel like, I get an Arnold Palmer. Maybe
Yeah,
it's a
okay,
John.
there you go. There
Maybe
you
it's a
go.
John Daly. We'll see.
Oh,
But you guys must have spent many hours and days and years at the Rainbow. I mean, we all have, right?
Yeah, oh
How,
yeah, and I've been there a lot lately. Actually,
yeah.
like I said, because we've become friends with the Magliaris, and
Okay.
it's been fun. We went to go see like my wife's a huge Doors fan, so like when Robbie Krieger did his kind of residency at the Whiskey, he
Yeah.
did like 5 shows, and we went to every one because she's obsessed with the Doors,
Ah,
and so it was really cool. We went to the Rainbow before and hung out with them, and then we walked over to the Whiskey, and it was a great night every night, and it's the Rainbow, man. Like somebody was just telling me, a friend of mine in a family function. And somebody who's been in LA his whole life and is not really in the rock and roll scene per se, but he's like, "Oh, I've never been to the Rainbow." I'm like, "What?
what?
What do you mean, what? Well, go to the
Yeah.
show, go to the
Well, yeah.
Rainbow." It's like, it's
Whatever. That's crazy. Well, I
institution,
guess
man.
there's one in every crowd, I guess.
That's true.
And thank God we've got the Rainbow left because, dude, they're taking away all our places. The Viper Room is soon going to be
Yeah,
gone. The
I
sushi
know.
place next to it is going. That whole block is going up, and like it started with the House of Blues on Sunset, and thank
Yeah.
God for the Maglieri family. The whiskey's not going anywhere. The Rainbow's not going anywhere, and down the block, I don't think the Troubadour is going to go anywhere. But that's what we've got left.
No, I know, and well, I was really bummed when House of Blues went under. It really changed everything up there, and the Viper Room. They say they're going to put it underneath this new giant building that they're building. They say that. I hope they do.
I'm
Hopefully
sure they
they
will.
will. Yeah,
But
just because all these clubs, all these venues help one another, and that was the scene. I mean, come on, in the '80s. It was the Roxy, the Troubadour and the Whiskey and the Rainbow that was part of our lives. Like we were there every week.
yeah,
Unless we would go to the country club out in Reseda, and we did that a lot, which is also a great venue, and we miss
you
it.
know,
But
yeah, you
that was part of our, we that's how we cut our teeth in life in the rock and roll world, and it was really,
yeah.
really cool. So we're
Yeah.
still doing it.
So they're holding on to it. Just to quickly mention, there's some other dates. You guys are going to be all over Europe later this summer. End of July in Europe. You're going to be with Sabotage in Warsaw
Yeah, we're playing
in
with
Poland.
Sabotage, which is really exciting because they're an awesome band and really haven't done that many shows here in the U.S. and maybe in the last 10 years or so, if any.
Yeah,
But they have always been a really big band in Europe, and we're excited to play with them. And Hall of the Mountain King, man, that's like still one of the
dude.
baddest tunes in
Gutter
records.
Ballet, Hall of the Mountain King. Yeah,
Yeah, so
Sabotage.
like we're really excited to be playing with them and we're playing with Metal Church as well, which is going to be great.
Oh,
We have a new record and we're doing some dates with them and Testament as well, who's I think playing tonight in the Belasco tonight. So we're doing some dates with them and then we're doing some festivals. We're playing the Rock Hard Festival, which is always a great show. And that's the first one we're doing. That's next month. And we're
yeah.
actually headlining it. So it's really, really awesome. And we can't wait. So we have a
That's
lot of work to
fantastic.
do.
Hey, I'm going back to the new record for a second, Emotion Factory Reset. I read that the vocals, most of the like 85% of the vocals that you'll be hearing on this entire new record, plus like the last two records, Punch in the Sky and Win Hands Down, were lifted from your demo. Like, is
Yeah.
that
Well, so in a nutshell, what we do is like Joey kind of takes ideas from everybody then and himself, of course, and then he constructs songs and he makes these very elaborate demos. They sound incredible. They
yeah,
really do. He puts a lot of work into it. And so then I come to his house after I work on some ideas and then we work together in his attic, which is where his studio is. So we kind of wait till planes go past or dogs stop barking or the gardeners, go out
yeah,
to stops and then we resume. And when we make these demos and when I sing on them, my intention is to sing it as best I can because we could just run through it just to get ideas down, or we can really put a lot of effort into making these really awesome sounding demos because he makes the music sound that way. So I feel the same about the vocals. So, and what it does is, sure, you might go back and repair things because A, you're out of tune, or B, you changed the part. But the reality is, sometimes when it comes to singing, like you'll sing a certain thing, you may never sing it that way again. It's kind of like a guitar lead. Like you may hit a
sure,
bend, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do it again, but like it's never quite sounds that way. So and I think vocals are like that. Like it's about capturing a vibe more
right.
than the perfection of it. So when we do it, we make these demos, and I sing the, I give him everything I got, and then when we go back, he'll kind of grade it, and he'll go, "Okay, on this one, there's only a couple things to repair," and I'm like, "Oh God, yes!"
I
So
nailed it.
because there's a lot of work that goes into it, and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been really an effective way of us working. I mean, shit, it goes back to us doing that kind of when we resumed, even when I was still in Anthrax and we made the Revelation record. We were working out of his house in Granada Hills when he lived in a different place, and we kind of took the same approach to making demos then for that album. So, it was put everything you have into the demo, and then again, if you have to come back and repair parts or whatever, you do what's right for the song, of course. So.
I think I kind of rediscovered Revelation last night, and like that record probably gets talked about the least. It's a ripping record,
Yeah, it's
Pillar,
great.
and oh my God, yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, Pay Dirt, After Me the Flood, Creeping
Yeah,
Feelings.
Pay Dirt.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's interesting. What you're talking about, the sort of process that Joey brings in as the producer of the record. He's not the de facto producer; he is the producer. And you
Right.
guys worked with producers in the past, and I've loved hearing some of the stories. I mean, first of all, the approach you just described sounds, from everything that I've ever heard about Max Norman, the opposite. Like Max Norman is just again, again, again.
Yeah.
Is that somewhat accurate?
Well, it was then, at least for Armored Saint. Maybe he just felt like he had to get us to keep doing it because he wasn't hearing us do it correctly, which is very possible. I don't know how it worked for Megadeth or Ozzy, but the reality is that he was kind of like this, maybe this English factory worker of like, keep going, and sometimes there's that method works because eventually you lock in and it becomes second nature. When it comes to maybe doing rhythm tracks, that might be a little bit more effective, contrary to, to me, in my opinion, vocals, because of singing is just a little different. It's, that I think it's just, like I said, sometimes you'll do things you never quite the same. So, and I mean, look, you can, as long as you have them all these ideas, then you can kind of go back and re-edit things together and make it work. As long as you have it there on tape, or not on tape. It's not on tape anymore. Of course, it's all digital. But yeah, Max was great to work with. He did an awesome job with Delirious No Man, and that still is one of a lot of people's favorite Armored Saint record. And the guy who's mixed the last couple of records, Jay Rustin, who produces many records, including Anthrax and Stone Sour. And he's really, really talented guy. He's incredible. He takes the sounds that Joey gets, and he takes it to a whole nother level. So Jay's phenomenal, and he's made our record sound like, I can't believe how good they sound. So it's great. You want to work with lots of people that kind of really kind of bring you up to another level. And we did that with Dave Jordan. I mean, Dave Jordan, he's gone now, but he was incredible. All the records that Dave did, Alice in Chains and Anthrax and the Offspring and Jane's Addiction. I
Jane's
mean,
Addiction,
come
yeah.
on, that's like ridiculous. His track record. It was really, really awesome. And just to be in the studio with him, and he was a funny guy, man. He was like, you never really knew what he was going to say or do. And sometimes he'd be like, I'm out of here. I'm going to leave for a while. And you'd be like, what? Or then he'd be talking about the race war that's impending. And this is not in 1991. He was a little prophetic.
Oh wow,
But
man.
yeah, but like he was crazy. And but yet he was really open-minded to ideas. He let Joey kind of run with kind of overseeing the way I was recording my vocals on Symbol of Salvation. So, and then in the end he mixed it, and he
Yeah.
was a good ball buster to this day. We always talk about there was a drumming part in Sound of White Noise that Charlie was playing, and he was like, sounds like damn Beach Bongo Fury. And Charlie was quite insulted by that in the end. But we all were cracking up. And when Dave died, it was funny because Charlie sent me a text like that day, and he wrote Beach Bongo Fury. And I was
Yeah.
like, so he remembered, and so even at the time it pissed him off and he felt it
Those
was really
things.
insulting. It was something we, of course, always laughed about. So,
Yeah, those little things become endearing after the fact, for sure. There was, I don't know where I'm going here, but I know that you knew about You weren't in the Troubadour a couple weeks ago for the Jennifer Perry benefit, were
I
you?
wasn't because I went to Italy to visit
Oh,
my
that's
daughter.
right. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
over there and I'm going to school, but
yeah.
I was bummed. I wanted to be, and that was a cool tribute. It was so
A
great.
really great night.
Yeah,
Odin
I
and
heard it was awesome.
Leatherwolf just was unbelievable. But
That's
yeah,
great.
the stories that people tell about Jennifer Perry now, they're not all lovey-dovey. Oh, she was the sweetest sweetheart in the world. She was a
Really?
hard ass.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, and like my last interaction with her was, dude, she came down on me like a ton of bricks, dude, because of a promo that I had produced at KLOS about the Ozfest thing, using Ozzy, like, muttering and you couldn't understand him, and we were kind of having a little fun with that.
Right.
All in, love for Ozzy and
Right.
stuff,
Right.
but
Of
at the
course.
time, she didn't quite think so, and
Right.
oh my God. And looking back on it now, I'm not mad at all. I was like mad and hurt back then, but now it's like my favorite Jennifer Perry story.
Right. Well, that's funny. We have a song on our new record. It's called Epilogue. It's the last song on the album. And it was cool because Joey, we were just working on a song. He goes, I have like one more song I want to kind of work on. And I kind of hear it being the last song. And I was like, okay, cool. And it's cool. It has this like really kind of like, UFO type riff to it. It just sounds kind of very retro.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, I like that. I go, if we're gonna have the last song, then let me kind of approach that lyrically. And so then I came up with the title Epilogue because I kind of felt like that's a cool title. And it's an extension of a book part that, maybe is the ending. And then I started, people's been asking me about that song, and I've been doing interviews, and I was like, you know what? It's funny because after the song was written, recorded, now I started thinking about it in a different way and started thinking about the meaning of the song, and maybe what it meant is it's it's something that carries on after you die, and it becomes your story is the epilogue, because the reality is once you die, you're dead, but people remember you, and then they tell stories, and then they tell about associations they had with you. Some of them may be flattering, some of them may be endearing, some of them may be not, but that's
Right.
the story, and that's your life, and that's how you carry on your life, but yet from the other people's perspective. And so it's kind of like an alternate ending to your life. And I mean, not to get too deep, but that was kind of,
Yeah.
like I said, this whole thing kind of came to me after the song was done. So it's funny because I think sometimes people ask me about lyrics and song ideas, and I'm like, sometimes a song will change its whole meaning to me 10 years later. It all of a sudden means something completely different to me. And I go, that's the beauty of songs. It's like it could always continue to evolve. And that song in particular is an example of that. So it's pretty
Very
rad.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
the song will reveal more of itself or more of what you had, or maybe it wasn't what you had going on at all, but circumstances and life goes on and it brings you to a certain place where you see that through a new lens.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, these things always kind of,
And that's funny you say that about Jennifer Perry, because like,
oh,
here's
yeah.
this place where everyone's kind of revering her, but yet, wow, she was yelled at me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
funny. It's cool.
Michael Alvieri mentioned something like that too. Like they were like, they would be at loggerheads with each other over different stuff. But that was
Hey,
what
I
made
mean,
Jennifer Jennifer, and it was all good.
well, let's
You
face it,
mentioned
it's
you.
not everything is wine and roses, and it's just life.
Correct.
Come
And
on.
everything's not black and white, and
Yeah.
all that. You mentioned UFO a second ago, and I was kind of in prepping for having talked to you, and I went kind of down the rabbit hole. There's so much lore, and there's such a story, with Armored Saint. Just Armored Saint alone. Forget all the other projects that all of you guys have been doing, but one of the interesting things, at least to me, was your guys' signing with Chrysalis, which was an odd choice. I think certainly in retrospect, you guys seem to figure out almost immediately, like, wow, this is not the best choice, because Metal Blade seemed like the obvious choice. But my question is, was part of the initial appeal of Chrysalis like the presence of like UFO and MSG? Because at that point, when you guys got onto that label, like that was like the Pat Benatar, Billy Idol, Blondie, Huey Lewis label.
Yep.
Like, what was the mindset in that moment?
Well, I mean, number one is the guy who signed us was probably the biggest reason, the catalyst to it, because he was so into us. His name was Ron Fair. He's still in the music business. He's gone on to do many, many things. And he actually came to see us when we played in Nashville with Wasp last couple years ago at the famous Ryman Theater. And he was there and he was almost as enthusiastic as he was back in 1984. So that was really the main reason to go with Chrysalis because, like you said, even though Chrysalis at that time was having a lot of success with all those bands that you named, Spandau Ballet you could throw in there, whatever, it wasn't really known as a metal hard rock label. Eventually I think Vinnie Vincent might have signed after Armored Saint even. Or it was right around that same time, and this was pre-Slaughter. So
Right.
so
Didn't work out for him either.
yeah, yeah, it did work out for him, but it was obviously all those bands like Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs. That's one of our favorite records, and
Yeah.
Jethro Tull, without a doubt, for sure. And then Ian Anderson had a big part in actually creating Chrysalis Records. So, and UFO, it ends there. So, that was definitely a reason. But I remember our first manager that when we first signed, and we had already got our deal, signed our deal, was already in the process of like getting ready to record. We met Cliff Bernstein, who's one of the famous rock managers of all time, still there, Q Prime, managing Metallica to this day, and you name it, so many bands. And we were meeting with them. He's like, okay, so you signed a Chrysalis, and we're like, yeah, and we're so stoked about it because we kind of did that ourselves. And he's like, I hate Chrysalis, and
Oh no.
we're like, oh, okay, what do with that?
Awkward. Awkward.
So well, we just signed to them, so can we make the most of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But yeah, I always liked the little butterfly and the imprint on the label and the blue and white. I don't know. I was Doug Christus, and they tried. They sometimes. Yeah, we didn't make it easy for them because when March of the Saint, we had this certain vibe, and then immediately, knowing Armored Saint, we kind of started rebelling against that a little bit because I always say that Armored Saint was this band in the '80s that was slightly like undetermined of what to do because we were really powerful, but we weren't a thrash band. We weren't like we didn't sound like the typical thrash bands at that time. We were from LA and we played with all these bands like Rat and Gray Wyatt and Wasp, but we weren't really a hair band in the LA mold as you think. So
Sure.
we kind of not really in that scene either. So sometimes we really didn't know where to fit in, and that really was created some. I always joke kind of some identity issues, and we were young. We were like 21, 22 years old. So you throw that in. We were and very rebellious, so we were trying to kind of find our way, and we probably didn't make it so easy for Christmas because by Delirious we were like going, okay, we don't want to wear armor anymore, and we're like, we got Phil left the band, and we were four-piece, and they're probably like, what?
What do we do? What do we
This is
do? But
not
that's
what
so
we do.
great because you guys blazed very much your own trail, even if you weren't quite sure, which way how to get through the jungle. You were all those things that you just said. You weren't a hair band, but you weren't a thrash band. I mean, you guys were just like a true hard rock metal band,
All right.
yeah, maybe
It was
who knows? I mean, you could second guess a million different things. I was just curious, about the Chrysalis angle,
Yeah, no, you're
and
right. You're
it
right there.
made sense.
Yeah.
I could totally see.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like I said. We ended up making a third album with Raising Fear, and most bands at that point, after making two records that we were quite in the hole with both of those records because March the Saint cost so much money to make, which is absurd. But it just put us in the red, far, far in the red. And for Ron, our A&R guy at the time, he was able to get them to agree to make a third album, which was pretty unusual at that point after two records that really didn't have the most lucrative backgrounds to it. But luckily we made Raising Fear, and a lot of people love that record too. So
It's a great one. Man, I looked up. I'm like, oh my God, we've been talking for half an hour.
now I could chat.
Dude, I could talk. I mean, I've got so much to ask you. I don't even know where to head next. I want to touch a little bit on Anthrax, and I've got two sort of points. One of them is You guys talked about, many times of sort of the disappointment that followed, Symbol Salvation didn't quite, do, I guess, what everybody wanted to. Me and my bubble at KNAC, I thought everything was great because we were
Oh,
we
you
were all
played
over
it.
that
You
record, and
played
yeah,
it.
we
Yeah.
played the hell out of it. But as before long, I guess the end of the road presented itself. You guys were at a crossroads.
Well, don't forget the grunge movement was full
And the
force right
grunge
there.
movement. Yeah, all this
Everybody.
stuff happening at the same time. That was a crazy, crazy year, right? 91,
Yeah.
all of that. So the question is, like, do you think that, when you got to the end of that road with Armored Saint and you joined Anthrax, did that break for those like 9 years? Did that just like give you guys the breathing room that you needed to make it possible for Armored Saint to come back together again? Do you think it would have happened anyway? And I don't even know if you can, guess at that.
Well, I probably still feel some guilt. I'll probably feel that till I'm in the grave, about
Really?
leading the band, and I wasn't easy. Armored Saint is a very close-knit family, as you can see, because we've carried on since we've returned. And I always champion the idea that it's still the same five guys. We missed Dave, who died in
Sure.
1990, but still the same guys, which is really pretty much unheard of.
It is.
It's pretty unheard of, especially for a band that has been around as long as we have, and especially for a band that never really had that giant of success. It'd be one thing if you had a giant success and everyone was like, yeah, well, I'm gonna stick around because I'm making a bunch of money, but that's not been our case. So it's pretty miraculous. But I'm sure in those 9 years, everybody kind of went their different ways, and everybody would have their own story to tell you about how they feel during that time, and the kind of the rebirth of getting back together and then continuing on. But my feeling was that was the way my life was supposed to go, and that's that, and I'm proud of it because I made some really killer records with Anthrax, and I'm happy I did. But I think that there's always been this strong bond with Armored Saint. Kind of We've been able to like just overcome any kind of obstacle, mostly, a lot of maybe financial success that's kind of eluded us, and we kept going. We just always said, we're going to just keep doing it and making music that we really believe in, and we kind of did that with Revelation, which was in 2000. And then I still went back to Anthrax because we
Sure.
made We've Come For You All, which came out in '03. So, and then it wasn't until a couple years later when I left that officially that it still took me some time to go, okay, I'm back with saying, let's do this because I didn't want it to be like, I just left my wife and I'm going to go back with my first wife just because that feels like the obvious thing to do. Yeah, I'm always using metaphors, but it's like I was like, I didn't want to just like immediately go, I'm back, honey. I'm here.
Right. Have it
Okay.
be a rebound affair. You wanted to be
Exactly,
in it for the right
exactly.
reasons. The right
Exactly.
reasons.
Exactly. So let's do it for the right reasons. And that was
So,
kind of my theory on it. And how it got
now,
steam and boom, the rest is history.
so I don't want this to sound, I don't know, like too much ass kicking, or maybe I'm even just like, sorry, ass kissing, but, and I might be barking up the wrong tree here, but I'm going to draw a quick comparison between you and the Beatles.
Oh,
But I
wow.
promise it's legit. There's a legitimate question here.
Okay.
So most, I think, fans have had this discussion or this consideration that it was like a miracle that the four Beatles found each other in Liverpool back in those days and formed the Beatles. Like just the existence of that band on Earth is like, what are the odds?
Right.
Right? Okay.
Right.
And I was, thinking about you guys. I'm like, what? Like by the same token, Joey, yourself, Gonzo, Phil, all at the same elementary school, three of you in the same class, and like the profound talent that's in that band, your vocal ability in particular, you guys must have at some point had that discussion, the sort of cosmic good fortune that you landed in one another's orbit. Has that come up a million times or
Well, I
ever?
mean, I think it's once again, we talk about the long period of time the band's been a band, and then you can go before that because there was a period of time when we were just friends and growing
Yeah.
up. going to elementary school, junior high, discovering all the bands that influenced us, all going to all the rad shows. Van Halen won at the, Long Beach Arena, and,
Sure.
Journey Hello at Anaheim, and Sabbath and Van Halen, Anaheim, all the shows that we just went together. And that was building momentum inside of us musically,
Yeah.
subliminally. And, and then it really, I think that's just that kind of, again, that helped cement the bond, really. And then, at one point I decided, it was actually a buddy of mine first who said, I'm transferring schools. I'm out of here, because we were all in El Sereno, the town we grew up in. And I
Right.
think some of us just yearn for something else, for nothing more than just to kind of see something else in life. And so he was going to transfer schools. And I was like going, you know what, I'll go with you. And so we ended up going to South Pass, which is the adjacent city. And South Pass is like more of the middle affluent neighborhood, and El
That's where
Sereno is
Dave
more
was.
lower middle class.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so we did. And, I'm glad that I made that decision, because sometimes I look back and go, man, I was a traitor to the barrio that I grew up in. And all my friends, which most of my friends, well, I have some friends from South Pass too, without a doubt. But the reality is most of my friends are from El Sereno, and we still are very close, let alone the band. That we have a lot of close friends from that
Yeah.
neighborhood.
I
But
mean,
um, but I'm glad I decided to do that, because once I did, that's when we met Dave. And
sure.
Dave was such an integral part of Armored Saint. And I love us guys, right? I love, me, Gonzo, Joey, Phil, but the band would not have been the band without Dave,
Without
without a
Dave.
doubt.
So
He
it
was
was
such
that
an important part. And then granted,
necessary jump.
we started playing club shows, and lo and behold, here's Jeff Duncan, who I think was like 16 when he was playing in Odin, opening for Armored Saint at the Troubadour.
Hmm.
And he was such a pup. And he was, we've known Jeff since like 1983, 82. And so, again, it just made sense that he was eventually part of this whole system as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where it's at. That's where
I just think like a million different guys, buddies went to all those shows, the metal shows back in the day, and that guy's a plumber, and that guy's a lawyer, and that guy's an accountant, and the other guys, this dude does this, that, and the next. But you guys like stuck together and discovered that not only were you great friends, like you had real talent, and you stuck it together and stuck the back. Like to me, like that's just such a unique unlikely story for a band.
it
Every
is.
band comes together somehow or another, a lot of want ads or whatever, but like
Yeah.
nothing, there's nothing like the Armored Saint story, the
It
backstory.
is. It is definitely unusual from the standpoint of that we grew up since, we were about 8 or 9 when we met, and B, it's still, other than Dave, who I would
Yeah.
say would still be here, and we'd be like, the Outlaws or Maiden, and we'd have three guitar players. It's
Yeah.
still the same guys. And that's just not something, there's so many bands, I'm not going to talk any smack, but there's bands where you'll be like, okay, it's let's take Foreigner, for instance. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just because they come to mind, and I
You
love Foreigner.
can.
I
Yeah.
mean, well, Lou Graham is actually one of my favorite singers. I love Lou Graham, and but like, I don't think there's anybody that made those
Yeah. It's like
performances.
Menudo.
So
There's no one, there's no one there. I mean,
yeah, so
the guys
like,
are there. They're great musicians and stuff, but
of course, but
it's,
it is a cover band in the sense that,
yeah.
it wasn't, none of those guys played on those first four albums. So, and I know Mick Jones kind of comes and goes, but, and there's a lot of groups like that. And it's like, okay, not taking anything away, because believe me, trust me, the future is cover bands, because the reality is all these bands from the 60s, if they're still alive for the rest of the time, we are all going to die. And so, but what will keep going is the music, and what will keep it going are going to be cover bands. And
Yeah.
trust me, some of the cover bands are way better than the original bands. They are. So I'm not
Yeah.
bagging on anybody. I'm just saying that the fact is, when you go see certain bands, you can go, is anyone in that band that played
Yeah.
on any of those records? I'm not saying they won't play it good.
Yeah.
They might play it amazingly,
So I
but
guess at that point you just have to ask yourself, well, hey, man, am I entertained? I don't know. Like
exactly.
that's the last,
Well,
if
you
you're
know
not
what
entertained, then don't go.
it comes down to the tunes. I mean, that's what it
Yeah.
does. That's what carries it on. Take Pantera, for instance. I mean, it's Phil and it's Rex, and for sure, and nobody's better than Charlie and Zach, of course. But
Right.
you are missing Phil and Diamond. I mean, Diamond and Vinny.
And
They're a
Yeah.
they were a pretty big punk.
Yeah. Yeah, I would
But
say.
but when you go hear it and you go see it live and you hear those songs, it's just those tunes and they carry it. So
I'll leave with this. I grabbed this. I wanted to play this earlier, and I really had another great question I wanted to ask you. But this is something I found in the trailer for Band of Brothers that just killed me. So I isolated it. Let me see if I can. Yeah, this react to this.
Armored Saint is a rock band, sure, but Armored Saint is also a sport because in order to be an Armored Saint, you have got to have the energy to pump it up every single night.
that's
Dude.
hilarious. No, I mean he's right. Actually, we always joke about that on tour. It's like, again, for guys who are, not spring chickens, to get
Right.
up there and get ready to, pound out these songs,
Oh
like
yeah,
a
it's
lot
no
of
joke.
work. You got
It's
to
no
do it. And
joke.
so, we've always been into athletics and stuff, and we kind of associate that with, with being in a band and especially a heavy metal band. You got to be fit. You got to be ready to go. And
Yeah.
Gonzo's right with that. It is a sport. We always kind of joke about it. Let's get ready. You're stretching. Man, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna compete.
Charlie went viral. I don't know, last week or the week before with his. So in February, Billy Corgan put this out there that he thinks it was a deliberate, you know, uh, decision to squelch rock music culturally, like, around the world and certainly in the States. And, he says,
Wow.
was it a CIA plot? I don't know about that. He says, but MTV and the consolidation of the radio stations and just put, there being fewer outlets for that kind of music was a real thing that really happened. I watched it occur in real time in the late 90s. So he said this and it kind of like, whoa, wow, people felt like that was very explosive or something. And then Charlie, about 3 weeks ago, was doing a podcast and he said, I've been saying this forever. And he said it was he basically echoed what Billy Corgan said, which was, again, like kind of nobody has really said this. And I wondered what your take on that was, because you were, in Anthrax at that point. And as you watched MTV squelch Headbangers Ball and just stop playing rock music altogether and just basically, put a lid on it and said, this is what you will consume now, like
Yeah.
with rap and pop. Yeah.
I don't know what years is he talking like the zeros or
He's
is he
talking, so Corrigan was specifically talking about like 97, 98. I
oh,
don't think he mentioned 99, but he was talking
wow.
late 90s. So it
Which
was
is
right around
crazy
the time,
because
like,
yeah,
yeah.
because pumpkins were huge during that time. So like if he felt that way about his band that was massive, that's really telling. But
Yeah. So,
yeah, I
like,
don't know. I mean, it's it if you just want to take MTV for example, it was a shame because they were this network that were playing music videos, and then they started having all this different programming in
yeah,
association with the music videos, and then eventually it wasn't the videos at all, right? And we
right.
know with YouTube that everybody's still making videos and have been, right? And
Yeah.
it's still a huge way to market records. So we just made three. So,
So,
so it's weird that they chose to do that. Obviously, some people in powerful positions said, this is, people don't care about this. They want to watch this. And it's
yeah.
like, okay, I mean, maybe they had a reason to believe that. I don't know. I don't know.
My take is like there's always been room at the table for everybody, I thought. So, like, why would you, stop signing rock bands, stop promoting rock bands, stop playing rock bands? To go back to what Charlie was saying, he spoke a little bit at length about what happened with KNAC. His point was about the consolidation of radio stations in the industry and stuff, and actually, and what a shame it was when KNAC went off the air because it was a big outlet for him. And those are actually two different things. KNAC was a mom and pop station
Right.
always,
Right.
and when it got sold to the company that still owns it today, and they changed to Spanish language broadcasting, that's just what that particular company does.
Right.
And that sale and programming change happened before the Telecommunications Act of 1996. That really opened the floodgates to relax ownership rules for all these big conglomerates. And then you really started seeing Clear Channel just come in and
Yeah.
hoover up all the stations, dismiss formats, dismiss talent and stuff. And that,
Well, you would know way more about the corporate radio world than I would. You're in it.
yeah,
So
I know that
you
little
know,
bit.
I mean, what I will say is I've talked to some people, because we have a new record and we've talked like we're talking about hiring an independent publicist to try to market a song on radio and basically, well, number one, it's so much money for somebody that they charge a lot of money, these independent companies. And two is like it's almost like you're wasting time and money because you'll never get it on because it's so corporate. And let's face it, when everything is corporate, and when you go to goddamn, what's it called now, crypto.com arena, Staples,
Oh yeah.
and they don't even care if people are in the seats. It's all about the boxes and everything is corporate. So radio, even though there was always payola and things associated with radio back in the day, to me, it was no surprise to think it's more corporate than ever because everything is, which is a shame. So I think it would be great if there were some more indie stations that you could kind of because even back in the day with KNAC, even though it was this indie station that had limited output where you could hear it, it had power and you knew it because people like I always made the joke or made the association. Bands were playing Irvine Meadows in front of 15,000 people. They would not have been doing that without KNAC. They would have been playing in front of 3,000 people.
Yeah.
So the reality is it showed the muscle that this indie station had. And but you know what happens? Hey man, like everything else, it's capitalism. If I sell this, I will make a profit. So I'm
Yeah.
going to do it. And that's capitalism. So, I mean, how can you argue with it? But, you know, it does suck. And I wish there were more indie stations, it used to be college radio, things like that. But, they always had limited powers, like pirate radio, SOU. I think it's still there, actually. And from Seton Hall University was always
Oh
this
yeah.
East Coast radio station that
Yeah.
bands were trying to get on, and they were heard throughout the whole tri-state
Well,
area, and they had
there's
muscle.
a there's a few like tastemaker radio stations. The one that but I mean, they're certainly, as far as I'm aware, I don't know how much hard rock is heard on there, but like KEXP up in Seattle area, they're
Okay.
always doing something really cool. And maybe
Well, I mean, look at say KCRW. KCRW is, I
sure,
listen to it all the time, and because I hear a lot of cool new music that they play that you're never good. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is a fucking great band,
yeah,
incredible band. They play the
right,
goddamn bowl. Okay, they are not
yeah,
playing on K Rock. They are not playing there. There's a lot of really cool bands out there, no doubt. I like to listen a lot of. I try to be aware of a lot of the modern heavy metal, hard rock bands, but so much of it is just it's just like it's so technical. It sounds like everything is made on a computer. It's so Pro Tools. And I'm like, man, I yearn for a band who just kind of comes in and like plays out of time and plays maybe out of tune and
sure.
slamming, and it sounds
They're
like
out there.
again, it's you just want to kind of like mix it up and I look again, I don't know. I mean, I'm old. That's the truth of the matter is that, the reality is it's going to be these young people that come in and kind of carve new ground and it's not going to be somebody we're just hanging on. But if we can at least do something that at least sounds, I mean, the truth of the matter is, I mean, and I'm saying this in a slightly pompous way. Nobody sounds like Armored Saint. Like nobody sounds like this type of a band. And when you
Yeah,
listen to our new music, it's not like you go, well, that sounds like it came out in 1985. It doesn't. It sounds modern, but it just
100%.
but it doesn't sound like a lot of the other bands. So for better or worse, I think we achieved something there, um,
Yeah,
and we're just kind of just doing what we do. But it's just doing the best you can do with what you do, and for
yeah.
the
You connect with your audience, and you always have, and you will continue, and you have a thing inside, and so you are going to, the longevity of this band speaks also for itself, to where like y- you're an inspiration to younger bands that are going to come up and like find something unique and valuable in what you guys have laid down. Like you've shown the way, and so it's like, it no one's gotten rich doing it, but that was never the point.
Well, the reality is, I was telling some maybe my wife that recently is like, the fact of the matter, if you take all the bands out there, let's just say all the bands who've made records, okay?
Yeah.
What percentage you think, and I don't know this answer, I'm just asking myself too, what percentage you think of them have had financial success of all the bands who've made records? It's probably like, it might be 5%, and that might be gracious.
Wow.
Honestly. So, I mean, when you make music and you're in the music business, the likelihood that you'll have success financially, I'm not talking about Metallica success. I'm talking about being able to make a living
Just pay the
success.
bills,
Yeah,
success.
is really, really, really slim. It really is. So it's funny. My daughter, she's in Rome doing this semester abroad, and it was great. We went there. We had a blast. She's killing it, doing great. But it's funny. It's like we were asking her recently, like, okay, so what do you want to do? And she's like, I want to get into film. We're like, oh, really? That's that's the industry you want to get in, and like, all right, good luck with that. But she actually has some connections and people that she knows, which could bode well for her. But it's like going getting in the music business. Like, oh, my son, he plays hockey. It's like, okay, I'd like to be in the NHL. Yeah, okay, you and a million others.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But you got to dream big, man.
you got to
You
dream.
got
You
to
got to
go for it. You
you
got
got
to
to
go
dream.
for it.
You do. You do.
Otherwise, if you don't, you'll always wonder,
Exactly.
and
You're
that'll
right.
drive you mad.
No doubt about it. You don't want
Yeah.
to be resentful and regretful.
I'll let it go with that, man. John, great to see you as always, and we'll do it again really soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Stu. Thanks for all the support and love. Always appreciate it.
This is Pure Rock, KNAC.